Order a meeting of the Hartford Selectboard on Tuesday, August 4th, 2026 at 6 p.m. I will say there are two board members who have notified me that they are not able to make the meeting tonight. So Mary Erdai and Ashley Andres are both absent. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Does anyone like to lead us in that? Thanks, Gal.
Oh, go ahead, Connie. You got it.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Chief Kelly. We have no business tonight as the local liquor control board and no business as the local cannabis control board. So we'll move on to the order of agenda. Are there any notes or comments about the order of agenda as presented? Eric.
Chair, I'm going to suggest that we move 5C into the discussion items.
Okay, is everyone okay with just moving that down? I don't think it really changes the order, but it just notes that it's more of a discussion item than an action item.
Yeah, that's fine. I had one other thought as it relates to people being able to be free and go home would be that, and Chief Kelly could speak to this, but to the extent that we took 5B and moved it a little further up, or just so, is that the only topic that you're kind of touching on tonight? So, I mean, you know, we've always kind of talked about to the extent that we can move items up to save people personal life space. So if you know, if there's anywhere we could appropriately put that, but I don't want to disrupt things too much. But
We could consider moving it before, you know, the appointments.
it's pretty close on the 5 series, so.
Yeah,
I'll
I
leave
think
it-
we'll
I'll
go
leave it.
through the appointments
Okay.
relatively quickly.
Okay.
And I know we have Scott here for Parks and Rec, so yeah, I think we just try to keep in mind, like,
Okay.
you know, which staff member goes first,
Yeah.
and rotate through. So yeah, if Chief Kelly, you don't mind waiting a little bit longer tonight, then we'll put you earlier in a future agenda when you're coming back. Okay, thanks for that reminder though, Tim. All right, so we'll keep the same order, but the park and ride item will be a discussion item. Everyone good with that? Okay. All right, we can move on to our public comment portion of the evening. If you're in the room and you'd like to make a public comment, please feel free to come up to the microphone. You'll be given 3 minutes to share any thoughts that you may have. If it's a thought related to an item that's on the agenda, we ask that you hold your comment for when we get to that agenda item. If it's a general comment, please feel free to share it. No guarantee that we'll respond in the moment, but we will try to take your comment into consideration and identify the best follow-up avenue. So yeah, go ahead and remember to introduce yourself and your village, please.
Hi, Marcy Bartlett from Wilder. Thank you for giving me a few minutes to speak, and it's great to see Gail over there in bright colors and on duty. I want to thank the Select Board for what they're doing, and I just got a lot, but I know I only have 3 minutes, so it's gonna go rattle, rattle, and then I'm gonna hand you some stuff and sit down. It took me several weeks of communication to get an accurate property tax bill. Christina Tardy is a gem. She's been wonderful, has helped me connect with the state of Vermont, and 3 versions of my bill came through. I would like to be able to just pay the correct one and have a clean document for filing when we do our taxes. I was able to get that today. But as the Select Board knows, that in my communication about our new town manager, one of the reasons I felt so strongly about Gail is because of her ferocious skill. And I love that. And not that other people don't have that, but I've known what she can pull off. And I'm hoping that that can be replicated and imparted to our new finance department director. I met her for the first time today, don't know her at all, but I'm grateful that I have an accurate property tax bill just to pay it on time and not be on the list, you know? So please help that go better. Whatever you can do to help that go better. In terms of the needle exchange question that's coming up. I've been digging in to try to get information on something I hadn't known about, which is that there's an organization in Lebanon that does have a mobile unit that brings clean needles into the town of Hartford and does not pick up used needles for those who are experiencing that really painful life choice. I want to go on record as saying I am not in favor of clean needles being distributed in our town. I am uncomfortable with the thought that I had to find this out through digging. I don't know if the public at large knows that this happens. And if the opioid settlement funds are being considered as to how to spend them. Evidently, the grant that that organization received to retrieve needles is part of their purview. They should be doing it, not us. And I got some information that I can hopefully submit to the board, some of which you have via email from another resident in the town. So this may be redundant, but I do want you to at least see it.
Great. Thank
So
you
there
so
you
much,
go.
Marcy.
And if you could get software for our public works guy so he can get our money.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks for your comments. Thanks for
Have a
coming
little
in.
bit of paper.
Yeah. Yeah, you're welcome to distribute materials. Thank you. Okay. Are there any other comments tonight for people here in person? Seeing none, we'll check on Zoom. No hands are on Zoom. Oh, one hand.
Marie?
Marie, go ahead. You have 3 minutes. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, Marie Elvin, Hartford Avenue, White River. I just wanted to make a comment on the report that John gave when he met with all of those people about needle data. You know, he met with the chief and Lieutenant Ferrari and the crime analyst and the nurse and assistant park and rec and 2 health officers. And apparently nobody really sees the benefit of collecting the data for the needles. Personally, I would think that we would want to know if there was 10,000 needles this year and 20,000 needles next year that have been distributed, but that all really falls on all of you, I guess. And one of my question was, the HPD said they already know where all the hot spots are and that the data would not be useful to them. Well, my question is, if the HPD knows where the problem spots are, why were there 3,000 needles underneath the Bugby Bridge? If outreach is going to check on people regularly, they see and they know that this is an area where people are hanging out doing drugs, why wasn't a bucket brought to just put the needles in? It just kind of doesn't make any sense to me. We're supposed to be helping and keeping the town clean and healthy, that people just turn their backs to needles just being accumulated and accumulated and accumulated. 3,000 needles is a lot of needles, and I don't understand who's responsible. I would think it's either the health department or it's the HPD. Somebody is responsible and they didn't do their job. To have 3,000 needles accumulate under that bridge over what time frame, I don't know. But that's just a question that I got when I spoke to John about that meeting that he had. And I just wanted to point out my question, and that's basically night, and thank you very much.
Great, thank you so much. Yes, I know we're aware that this is a big issue of concern in our community right now, around the presence of needles, collection of needles, topics related to that. I know Gail is following residents' emails and comments on this topic, as we all are. I'll say that I'll reiterate, I read all the emails that people send in, and I cannot always formulate a response or know exactly what I want to say, but it's a topic that we are going to keep in in the front of our minds, and once we have a clear response, we will share that. And Eric, if you want to respond too?
Thank you. Yes, thank you for your comments, Marie. I would just clarify that my interpretation anyway is that HPD is not saying that they're not interested in the data. The challenge is reliability of the data. So if it's not reliable, then using it to generate reports isn't going to be particularly useful. And the challenges with reliability are who's collecting it and how is it being consistently, how is that data being consistently gathered? So it's a challenge that I don't think we have an answer to yet, but it's not that they're not interested in it. It's just they recognize, my interpretation is that they recognize that collecting it and trying to report something would likely produce, it would not necessarily be meaningful. So I just want to clarify that.
Thank you. Okay, yep, and Gail's gonna comment briefly too.
So I do have the needle collection, needle counting on my list of things to do. Marcy Bartlett's reached out to me, Maria Elvin's reached out to me, and a couple of other residents as well. So I do have that on my list. I plan to next week meet with staff that are involved with this and get a better understanding. As you can imagine, the first week has been a little bit of a whirlwind, so it's not as though I'm ignoring anybody. I just want to make sure that I have all the information, and then we can continue the discussion going forward. And I did want to mention, Marcy Bartlett mentioned about the opioid funding in needle collection. Last year, when I was the finance director, there was a request that came through. That was denied by the Attorney General's office because the funding for opioid that we received is to be proactive, not reactive. And I think that's a hard definition for some to understand. And then I'm going to talk about the opioid part of it next, but I just want,
Yes.
I haven't forgotten about the needles. It's on my list, but.
Okay, great, excellent. And there, we have a really great contact who's a Vermont State Health employee that works locally. Miranda and I have met with her about the opioid fund specifically, but she has a lot of expertise. So I'm happy to connect you too if you want
That'd be great.
to get her point of view
Yes.
on this topic. Thank you. Okay, we have another public comment. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, Jeanette Sharkey Potter, White River Junction. So I just want to share, I did a public records request after finding 3,000 plus needles under the bridge and in my backyard and elsewhere throughout town. I want to just get the scope of this. So part of this is not the town's responsibility. This is part of a grant agreement that the people distributing the needles have, that they distribute them and they collect them back. So that is part of their grant agreement with the state of Vermont. So it is on them. We should not be paying for this as taxpayers, number one. Number two, I want to just talk about, they stopped collecting data, the needle exchange program, in 2020. But I want to say that in 2015 to 2016, they got $14,000. They had 74,000 syringes go out. This is our local area. 45,000 were returned. This is in 2015 to 16. 2016 to 2017, they were awarded 47,000 almost. They put out 73,276. They got 55,317 back. 17 to 18, they were given 69,000, we'll say. They distributed 85,579. They got 50,427 back. 18 to 19, they got 86,000, well, almost $87,000. They distributed 67,890 needles. They got 32,063 back. In 2019, they were given $130,543. They gave out 41,969 needles. They got 20,942 back. Then they stopped collecting data. Part of their grant agreement is that they are responsible for the collection of this. And their funding has gone, they've gotten from 2020 to now, they've gotten about $1.2 million So I'm happy to answer questions on how the system of care works, but it is firmly within their responsibility and their liability to clean up after this.
Thank you, Jeanette. Can I just ask, I do have your email about this as well, but who is the they that you're referring to? Do you know the name of the organization or the entity?
It's the Hep C HIV Resource Center based out of Lebanon, New Hampshire.
Okay.
Jeanette, one more follow-up question.
Yeah.
Was that Hartford, were those statistics just for Hartford or was it?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Correct. In Burlington, the number, I worked with a guy up there around this, Evan Litvin, who's on the city council, and Howard Center was distributing the needles. They since closed because the neighbors are actively suing the Howard Center because of the needle exchange issue and the litter. They distributed about 1 million needles up there over the last 10 years, and they've gotten a quarter of those back. So there's 750,000 needles just free range in Burlington. That's not here. And they could have gone to surrounding communities as well. But this was my public record request, was from the Department of Health that funds these programs with state funding and federal funding. And the grant contracts were also in there that they are supposed to collect data on needles they're supposed to collect data on needles returning as well.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for your work on that topic. If there is no other new hands, okay, Marcy, yes, you can have a second comment.
Marcy Bartlett Wilder. Thank you, Jeanette. I appreciate there's some data. It may not be the most recent data, but it's the data that's available. I think what I'm trying to make, from my point of view, I want to make that point that we need to gain the mindset that throwing clean needles out and getting dirty needles back is not a system that seems to be generating good public health policy. I want to let that sink in because I've emailed the town, I've emailed on the listserv. All it takes is one dirty needle for some little kid to contract whatever that is. We don't ask for a lot, but we have a right to a safe community as well. Those who are not partaking in that habit have a right to a safe community. And I'm not going to apologize for that.
Thank you. Okay, if there are no other comments currently, then I will close public comment for tonight. Thank you for everyone who came to make their voice heard. Appreciated. Okay, we'll move on to select board comments and announcements. Does anyone have a comment that they'd like to start us off with tonight? Tim?
I tend to do these, I know, more broad kind of philosophical statements, but just hearing people tonight, I've been trying to do this in my own personal life and my own professional life, and I guess the slogan I want to use for the night is assume the good. Assume that the people out there who are working every day in this town, trying to do the best work they can, are doing the best they can. And I sometimes think that the tone of the presentations, it's not that the content is invalid or a legitimate concern, but I just think that if we can, as a community, start from that place to assume the good, that the people that are doing the work out there, at the moment, Brett Mayfield comes to mind. I've seen him for years and years toil through some real tough challenges in this community. Let's assume the good. Let's assume that the people who are out there doing the work are trying to do the best work.
Thank you, Tim. Any comments tonight, Miranda?
No comments.
Okay. Eric, over to you.
Thank you. Two things come to mind. One, I happened to be looking at the town website homepage the other day and noticed that for the month of August, there are 14 events on the calendar. So out of 31 days, we have 14 with a circle on it. It's just sort of interesting to me. You look at websites and calendars that are on them, and if you don't see activity, you get the sense that there's no heartbeat behind that. Obviously, there's a heartbeat here. We are extremely busy, and impressively so. And so it's just sort of a random observation I had about how many things are going on and how much good work is being done. And secondly, I did a ride along recently with HPD, and I just wanted to say thanks to them, particularly the two officers who had to spend 2 hours apiece with me in the cruiser. So
Were you in the front of the car or the back of the car?
Well, the first car, there was a dog in the back, and did not want to be in the back with that dog. It's high energy, let's just say. So anyway, thanks to Chief and to staff for that. I always learn more, and that's, in fact, in an ideal world, there would be ride-alongs, sort of the equivalents for every department. I think that would be something that I'd be interested in exploring, just to not get in the way, but to learn and understand, and it's very helpful. So thank you.
Great, thank you, Eric. Mike, anything tonight?
Yeah, actually, I just wanted to give kind of a shout out to Chief Hootie and the Hartford Fire Department. There was a apartment fire in my building on Saturday, and their response was very rapid, and they took care of it. And they were awesome, so thank you.
Great, yeah, I read about that. I hope everyone was safe. I think everyone was safe. And
Totally.
thank you to all the first responders who participated in that event. I have a few things I wanted to say. One is just to start out by saying a huge thank you to Gail, who we all knew she would, but she hit the ground running at about 100 miles an hour this past week plus, and is juggling a million balls and handling it all with a lot of grace and integrity. So huge thank you to Gail. And we as a community will get the formal opportunity to welcome Gail into the position this Friday. There's a public reception that will be right across the hall here in room 2 of Town Hall. And that's 4 p.m. on Friday. Just, casual gathering to welcome Gail into the position, and it coincides nicely with First Friday, so you can make it your first stop on your first Friday evening and just say hello and welcome. I also want to make a preemptive congratulations to the awardees who are going to be honored next week at the Hartford Police and Emergency Communication Award ceremony. That's August 10th. I don't believe it's open to the public, but I know the select board members got invited. So I personally can't make it, but I encourage you all, if anyone can join and congratulate and celebrate the awardees. That's gonna be a big fatties next Tuesday, or not, Monday evening. And there is an RSVP request for that. So just a reminder, it's in your email. It came from John. So to check that out. And yeah, I wish I could be there, but congratulations, like I said, to everyone who's getting celebrated. And then finally, well, I will say briefly that we are in progress in terms of reviewing applications that were submitted for the opioid settlement funds, and we've gotten some really helpful input and feedback, both from our committee made up of community members and other community folks who are interested in how those funds are going to be distributed, and I really appreciate all the input there, and we hope to have a decision about that by the end of August. It's a brand new process, so I'm just asking folks to have patience as we sort out the best way to approach it, and I definitely have a lot of notes in terms of how to improve the process moving forward, but we're going to get there, and I'm excited to get these funds back to our community in a way that is as intended by statute. And finally, I'll just note, most folks are probably aware, but we have our primary election next week as well. Tuesday, August 11th, voting will take place at the Hartford High School as usual. I know our town clerk and her whole team is working really hard to prepare for the election, so thank you to all of them, and thank you to the volunteers who will be supporting the election. And I hope everyone can make some time to vote on Tuesday. The polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Okay, that's all I have. All right, we will now move on to appointments. First up is Alexis, how do you pronounce your last name? Hudes. Hi, Alexis. Come on up. If you don't mind coming up, this is a new appointment, so thanks for being here in person. I know you've been involved with the Energy Commission already, but if you just want to speak for a few moments about why you are applying. We saw your application, but anything else you want to share or add, just for folks that maybe didn't read the packet?
Sure. Yeah. Hi, I'm Alexis Hudes. I live in Wilder over by Frost Park. I am in the Energy Engineering PhD program at Dartmouth, so I've been doing a lot of coursework and research about energy and thinking about efficiency measures, and I feel really excited to take some of that knowledge and experience and think about how to apply it locally. I've been sitting in on some of the Energy Commission meetings, and I'm sort of just trying to get up to speed on all the great work that they're already doing and see how I can fit in and contribute. And I also do most of my commuting using like the bike and bus infrastructure, and I have a few thoughts about how those things could be improved. So I'm going to be hopefully starting as the liaison for the Bike and Pedestrian Committee as well. I don't know what else to say, but
Okay, that's great. No,
Yeah.
yeah, perfect. We'll just take a second to see if anyone has comments or questions from the board. Eric?
Thank you for applying, and I appreciate your interest in transportation. I think it's an area that we really need to do a lot more work in. Obviously, we've got building energy as a huge energy challenge, but transportation is biting us in so many different ways. Not that long ago, we looked at a state-funded change to the rotary at Route 4 and 5 intersection. And it's necessary, it's a very necessary project, but it's a $7.2 million project because of the capacity of our roads and the increase in auto traffic, really. And so, you know, that's just one dimension among many why we should be pursuing alternatives to single occupancy vehicles. So I look forward to hearing what you and the Energy Commission have to offer in that realm in the next year to come. Thank you.
thank you.
Great. Yeah, and I'll just echo Eric and say thank you for applying. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate you taking time to really take an interest and focus on the local community while you work towards your degree and to bring your expertise to the role. So appreciate your involvement. Okay, Lynn, did you want to comment about the appointment before we vote, or? Okay, Lynn, come on up.
Hi, Lynn Bohai from Wilder. I'm the clerk of the Hartford Energy Commission. And it's true, Alexis has been coming to our last 3 meetings and has had some very thoughtful and helpful comments to make. And last month, we were asked for a bike and ped volunteer, and even before they were on the commission, Alexis volunteered to do that. And I just encourage you to, I know that she'll be really, that they'll be really helpful in the committee.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Lynn. Okay, we're ready to take a motion. Make a motion. Eric?
Thank you, Chair. I move to appoint Alexis Hudes to the Energy Commission for a 3-year term beginning August 4th, 2026 and ending August 3rd, 2029.
Second.
Motion from Eric, second from Miranda. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstain? Great, so we have 5 in favor, 2 absent. Congratulations, Alexis, and thank you again. Okay, next up for appointments is another new appointment, Savannah Bailey. Hi, how are you? If you wouldn't mind coming up and just similarly, just introducing yourself and saying a few words about why you're interested in this commission.
Hi, I'm Savannah Bailey. I'm a new resident of VIII Junction, and I moved to town because I got a job in Hanover, working for the Hanover Conservancy as their stewardship coordinator. So I'm working in land conservation during my day job, and we work pretty closely as a nonprofit with the Hanover Conservation Commission. So I know a lot about conservation issues in Hanover, and realized that I don't really know anything about it in Hartford, and I'm very passionate about land conservation and stewardship and balancing development and with conservation values. So I'm interested in getting involved with the Conservation Commission, and I appreciate local government as being an important way of actually having the boots on the ground, getting things done. So I'm excited to get involved.
Awesome, thank you. Super exciting that we have new appointments of people with a ton of expertise in the areas relevant to the commission. So thank you so much for stepping up. Can I just ask how you heard about the vacancy on the Conservation Commission?
I first heard about it from Ben Fletcher, who works at the Upper Valley Food Co-op. And I also talked to someone, I think the chair who's stepping down at the block party event that happened.
John, the former town manager? Oh, no, the chair of the Conservation Commission.
Yes.
Oh, okay, okay, great, thank you. Okay, any other comments or questions for Savannah? Okay, ready for a motion? Miranda, yes.
I move that the board appoint Savannah Bailey to the Conservation Commission for a 4-year term beginning August 4th, 2026 and ending August 3rd, 2030.
I'll second.
Great, motion from Miranda, second from Tim. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed or abstain? Great, so we have 5 in favor and 2 absent. Congratulations, thank you very much. Looking
2030,
forward to
gotta go to 2030.
contributions. Yeah, I know, that's.
I was like, that's a long one.
4-year appointment is unusual.
Abstract.
They must have their own, they're different term limits than most commissions. All right, finally, we have appointment of Jeanette Potter to the Hartford Tree Board for a 3-year term. Come on up, Jeanette, introduce yourself, say why you're interested in the role.
Jeanette Sharkey, White River Junction, Vermont. I have no experience in trees other than liking them, planting them, and occasionally hugging them. And I apologize, Tim, for earlier if I got a little, I don't know if your comment was about me getting,
No.
how the message is delivered. I can be very passionate, and some people get taken aback by that, so I apologize. But thinking about trees just gets me real grounded. I have some big ideas. I recently joined the Tree Brigade in town, which just found out that that was a thing, and they're looking to plant all sorts of, they were the folks who joined with the Apple Corps who planted the very wonderful apple trees that are going to be super productive this year out front. And I'm part of Upper Valley Seed Savers and the Apple Corps and the Tree Brigade. And I regularly walk around town and try and encourage native species growing and discourage other things. So taking on some knotweed eradication efforts around town if anybody's up for it. I think it'd be fun to go out with a samurai sword, just not in my town. Anyway, sorry. I'm being silly now because, so that's me. I'm okay with not being on the board too, but I just feel like somebody has to do it, so.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Eric?
Thank you for applying, Jenna. Have you attended tree board meetings, and are you familiar with what sort of their, loosely speaking, what they're working on right now and what they plan to work on in the imminent future?
So I read the minutes for the last year, and the limited amount of information I have from the tree board is just from the minutes, which on any committee, it's sometimes a little spotty. It seems like theirs are pretty good. It does not, and I've also attended the tree sale, the annual tree sale, and talked to Mike Kopp and Jasmine about the tree board, but I have not attended any meetings, no.
You're the liaison, right, Miranda?
Not anymore.
Oh, no, anymore. Oh,
Yeah.
Mike, okay, yeah. Okay,
It's a lot of fun.
just FYI,
Some
yeah.
outdoor activities too.
Mike's the liaison to that committee.
Oh, cool,
Yeah.
yeah. No, it's good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other comments or questions? I'll take a motion. Miranda?
Hello.
Yes.
I move that the board appoint Jeanette Potter to the Hartford Tree Board for a 3-year term beginning August 4th, 2026 and ending August 3rd, 2029.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Second from Tim. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed or abstain?
Thank
5
you.
in favor, 2 absent. Thank you so much. Congratulations. Okay, so we'll move to the town manager report. Yeah, just a quick note, Gail, typically John would have one written out. I don't know if that is some
Yeah.
practice you want to do or what
That
you're
was my
thinking.
first statement, is I apologize for
Okay.
not having a formal
It's okay.
town manager report.
Yeah,
I didn't get to it,
no,
so.
totally fine,
I
totally
promise to
fine.
do better going forward. Just a few things that I've been working on in the past week, working with the staff for reviewing the CIP. Hopefully we'll be able to provide the correct revised information to the consultant next week. Once we have that, hopefully we'll be able to reschedule the CIP workshop that was canceled, postponed, until that's done. working with staff on the budget guidance. I've been blessed to meet many, many community members, new ones, reconnect with ones that I knew before. South Main parking lot cleanup, needles, we already talked about. I have that on my list for this week, hopefully next week. Working on the opioid requests, finally got the contacts at the national and state level, so I'll be sending all of those out. And parking meters discussion tomorrow with HPD, DPW, planning, finance, and I'm sure I'm missing somebody else, me. We'll also talk about overall some concerns about the South Main parking lot, so that will be a great discussion. I met with Mike earlier this week about the organizational assessment. I'll be coming to you on August 18th for the selection to move forward with that. Did speak, emailed back and forth with the consultant, wanted to make sure that we could update the timeline since we're kind of a month past due already, so they're working on that. Been working with a communications media specialist about community events, as well as he's been working with our IT director about overall AV in this room and some changes that need to be done, as well as the updates on the website for the agenda, so more to come for that. And then I'd like to take the opportunity, Haley Manley is our new HR director, and we've been spending a lot of quality time with each other, and looking at some vacancies that we have throughout the town, and then also some team building, not only at the leadership level, just across the town, and then hopefully incorporate some team building along with the select board.
Excellent. Great, thank you so much. Any questions for Gail about the report from the board? Any questions? Okay. Yep.
All right. And then significant activities. So I have a few on here. I believe those board members who had questions have already reached out to staff and gotten your answers. So I just have a few highlights here that I would like to talk about. Hartford Police are seeing the regular summer increase in encampments and urge all property owners to monitor and report trespassers to the police department. Another item for HPD, on July 24th, Hartford police officers placed Dana Westcott, 43 of Hartford, Vermont, under arrest. The warrant for Westcott's arrest contained the following original charges: violation of probation and aggravated assault. Westcott was lodged at Southern State Correctional Facility in lieu of $2,500 bail. Additional charges are being expected. Communication media specialists continue to work on the new agenda and meeting management system to streamline the creation and management of meeting agenda packets and minutes. Helped advertise the domain switch to provide a more secure website. The town of Hartford is officially transferring from the hartford-vt.org to hartfordvt.gov. For all the email addresses, this domain is reserved exclusively for verified government organizations. Shout out to Marcy Bartlett for, that's okay. We had a little bit of a hiccup with the email, and so I appreciate you bringing that to our attention, and we, yeah. Last thing for communications media and specialists, developed a strategy to recruit more emergency communication specialists. And then last but not least, very important, Ida touched on the upcoming election. So from the town clerk, absentee ballots are available in the clerk's office. The ballot drop box will be closed at 5 p.m. on Monday, August 10th. After this time and date, all ballots must be brought to the polls. The clerk's office will close at noon on the day before the election, Monday, August 10th, and will be closed on election day, August 11th.
Okay. Great. Any other questions or comments for Gail on the report? Okay, great. Thanks so much. All right, now we will move to the next section of our agenda, which is board report motions and ordinances. We have no committee or commission updates tonight. So we'll move on to our action items and begin with considering the renewal of a memorandum of understanding with the West Hartford Library trustees. And we have Scott Hauser here to present on this topic. Thank you, Scott.
Yes. Madam Chair, Select Board members, here before you tonight for the memorandum of understanding between the Town of Hartford and the West Hartford Library trustees. The background, self-explanatory. This is a good working relationship. The town owns the building. The West Hartford trustees are appointed to operate a library and have an agreement to do so out of that building. So we're here tonight for you to review and approve a 10-year agreement with the West Hartford trustees. The financial impact is on there. It's our operating budget related to the building, and then also the special appropriation that is given to or voted on for the trustees to operate building as a library, just to show you the financial impact to the town. We're here to ask you to authorize the town manager to execute the memorandum of understanding as presented. I do believe Doug, one of the trustees, might be online as well in case you have some questions.
Okay. Great. Does anyone have questions about this for Scott or for Doug?
I have a brief comment.
Okay.
So just two things. You know, we've kind of talked about the idea that we have significant demands around town as it relates to buildings. So we would probably expect a slight realignment of duties around that. That is to say, like, I know Scott's been stepping up and, you know, taking care of a lot of those issues through Parks and Rec, but we would perhaps expect that if we indeed secure a good facilities manager and that's up and running, that person would sort of assume that oversight of that building and operation, or is that not an accurate way of thinking?
So the building is the West Hartford Community Center and Library. So when I took over and started working for the town, that is one of the buildings that we collaboratively use. So if there's functions and activities, there's Patriot Park, which is next to the library that we maintain and take care of. So, I mean, that's entirely up to you. You know, there's not a huge demand. Honestly, it was kind of odd for me, I think, to go through the process related to the memorandum of understanding, because that's more of an administrative tool and responsibility for the select board and management of the town. So John asked me to do it, I did it. Right. It's a community space that we utilize on occasion, and a lot of activities we collaborate with the West Hartford Library in providing the community. So as far as the building, it's just one of our recreational buildings, nothing different than the WABA, nothing different than kind of how we utilize Town Hall as a recreation space. So there's a lot of buildings in the community that we utilize for parks and recreation. So we've got our hands in a lot of things.
Yeah, I wasn't really trying to necessarily touch on the use of the building. It was more, and I hope this isn't taken as a critique, but I like swimming up there by the bridge. And so I said, oh, let me walk around the building and kind of check it out. And candidly, like, there are some like missing clapboards around the bottom of the building. It needs some care. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just looking for like accountability, oversight of these buildings that they're cared for. And it's no reflection of you guys or whatever, but it's more like who's ultimately responsible for making sure that building's well cared for.
Right. Yeah, there's some needs there at that facility, no different than some of our other facilities. So the clapboard, I'll take a look at that. It is due for a power wash on the 10th. So, you know, all the cobwebs and things of that nature, it gets done generally every 2 years. So those types of things are maintained on a regular basis, similar to the maintenance plan for the heat and all the utilities that are out there.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah.
The HR director and I did start the discussions this week about the facilities manager. her being new and me not having all of the information on the facilities manager, we're going to review it and then come back together because we do have many buildings, and I'll be working with the department heads to find out how the new facilities manager can assist across the town. So, but it's still new, but it's in discussion.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, I think those are exactly the type of issues that we hope that why we created a facilities manager position. So things like that wouldn't fall on Scott, who's already managing a lot of programming and other topics. So yeah, great that we can move forward with that. All right, any other questions? Okay, I think we're ready for a motion. Eric.
Thank you. I move that the board authorize the town manager to execute the memorandum of understanding as presented.
Second.
Motion from Eric, second from Miranda. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed or abstained?
Thank you so
Great,
much.
thank you,
Thank
Scott.
you, Scott, appreciate it.
You bet.
Do you have it? You want me to send you?
Okay. All right, next up, we are getting to the purchasing policy exception for Cellebrite, and we have Chief Kelly to discuss this. Thanks, Chief. Yeah, this is another relatively straightforward one, so just a few
Yes.
brief comments to introduce it would be great.
Thank you. Chief Kelly, Hartford Police Department. Basically, this is the Cellebrite competitive sealed bid exception request. It's a renewal request of a sole source product and service that we currently utilize. We have several staff members that are trained to conduct this Cellebrite for forensic extractions. The funds are currently budgeted for in our FY '27 budget for an amount of $20,564. The amount did go up this year, so the balance of that, the $2,454.50, will take out of our SIU grant funds, which is what this device is also used for, is for those special investigations.
Okay, excellent. Any questions for the chief? Tim?
So we buy a device, is it like a subscription kind of thing, or like what's the lifespan?
So it's a device with a subscription, and then the training, so basically without the device, the officers that we have trained in it is useless. So they go hand in hand. So once you're trained on this device, it's very costly to be trained on it. So we only have a handful of people that are certified to use this device.
Do we have a sense of the lifespan though? Is it like 3 years and then you kind of need a new one, or I mean?
No, it's just the subscription upgrades. So it's all done through cloud-based type work.
Other questions? Eric?
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. You responded to an email from, question from Mary about a warrant and consent, and I think the response, if I recall correctly, was that you use this device to extract information from people's phones or what have you after obtaining a warrant and after obtaining consent. Did I understand that correctly?
Either or.
Yeah,
So
either or.
if someone provides consent, we're not gonna go the route for a warrant. I stand corrected. There are times where someone may give consent, but depending on the case, we may choose to do a warrant anyways. But it is used for either a warrant or consent.
Okay, thank you. I think I missed the or in there, and I was like, well, why would, if you have consent, why do we need this?
Correct.
All right, thanks for the clarification.
Yes.
Great. Any other questions? Okay, we're ready for a motion. It's on the bottom of page 18.
I'm getting there, hold on. I got it.
Miranda's got it. Okay.
I wonder if someday we can just have AI read these, you know?
I move that the board approve an exception to the Town of Hartford Purchasing Policy, Section 3.7, for the renewal of Cellebrite for the amount of $23,018.50.
I'll second.
Motion from Miranda, second from Tim. Any discussion? I'll just say, I don't know if Chief noted this, but the reason why we're providing the exception is because this is the only company which produces this product.
Correct.
So that's why we didn't put this out to a bid, because it's a sole source product
Yes.
exemption. right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstain? Great. All right, thank you, Chief, for coming in.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, we are gonna move down to our discussion items for the evening and hear about, yes, this is you, Dana. We're on to the Wilder Park and Ride.
They made a change to the agenda. At the beginning of the meeting, they would like to move your topic down to discussion versus
Yes.
action.
Yes, we just reclassified it because there may be just some discussion. We just wanted to clarify that. Sure. And it is more of a update. But yeah, we'll hand it over to you to share a brief summary of what you wrote out in the memo. Thank you for providing that.
Yeah, so I'm not going to rehash the history of this because I think most people are familiar. At this point, I've got 3 quotes from CED. They came in at around $32,000, which is about 50% more than when we had gotten the quote back in October. I assume that's largely just tariff pricing. We do have the grant from VTrans for about $1,800 and change. And right now I put out an RFP last week. I think that it's due on Monday. We'll see. I have had emails from 3 different companies that are interested in submitting bids for that as well. So it looks like we'll have some options to choose from. And that's where we are. And as far as moving this down to discussion, I don't know, does that mean we're going to kick this back another month? Because yeah.
Okay, I don't know the answer to that, but I do want to allow board members to respond and members of the public as well. So Eric, do you have a question or comment?
Thank you. I asked for it to be moved to the discussion, or I suggested it be moved to the discussion session. It feels not action item ready to me. And maybe you can clarify, and maybe I'm wrong. And so I'll start with the bottom line. You're asking us to approve $40,000 for something that currently you have the highest price. The highest price is $32,000 and change. So you're asking for a 25% contingency on a project where the design, planning, and the installation is done in-house. So all those variables are not part of this contingency. So basically it's a contingency on materials, but we're getting a quote. And so presumably the quote would have a valid lifespan beyond the purchase period. So in other words, inflation is taken out of the equation as well. So a 25% contingency on a small project like this is let's say unusual.
Okay.
Like it seems to strike me as it's $8,000 extra because why? Because we can't plan the project?
I don't know what the concrete costs are going to be, those kind of contingencies. That's kind of on DPW. I mean, if you want to strike that and knock it down to 32 because you're comfortable with that, then I'm fine with it. I was just trying to avoid coming back and prolonging this project any more than it needs to be.
Yeah, it's unusual. I mean, look at the agenda item that we had just before this, where we know that it was, I mean, down to the cent, we know what we're spending. Now, in this case, I can understand that there might be some variables in the construction cost, but what I'm asking for is project planning and an estimate based on a project plan that's executable.
Okay.
And then presenting this to the board. And so I may be the only voice that wants that, but to me, it seems the appropriate path rather than asking for an amount not to exceed $40,000, which is, there's a lot of play in there that we haven't been, that hasn't been explained. Another area of interest of mine is the lifespan of these things and whether we've really done the analysis to decide whether grid tied versus non-grid tied is the way to go. I know that the installation effort and presumably cost is less with a non-grid tied solution. And I understand why, because I understand the site and the fact that a pole might need to be put into place in a meter socket. But one of the things that's interesting, so months ago when you first gave us the equipment at the $22,000 price point, this is like 8 months ago, my research showed that the module, so the solar panel, the charge controller and the battery are an integrated unit. So if one of them fails, you start over, right? You get rid of that whole thing. And so at least that was for the hardware that you presented back in however many months ago. And so that is a significant portion of the cost of the thing. So if we're looking at $32,000 for 4 lights, roughly $8,000 a piece, probably $6,000 of that is something that has a limited lifetime. And because it's an integrated unit, at least for that particular hardware, you look at the mean time to failure for the shortest mean time to failure, and that's probably the charge controller. Maybe the battery, I'm not sure. Definitely not the solar panel. And so you're replacing, the charge controller has a lifespan maybe of 8 years on the equipment that you gave us back in 8 months ago. So every 8 years, you're in for another $6,000 plus factor in inflation. So I think what we need is some analysis that shows over some reasonable horizon. Obviously this park and ride may not be there for 150 years, so that may not be a reasonable horizon, but it might be there for 30 years or so. What is, so the cost up front is less with the solar non-grid tied solution, but what does that curve look like over time? And we don't know that, and we don't have any good information for that. So I probably have some other questions, but those are the main ones, and I just don't think that this is actionable tonight.
Well, I think we need to measure efforts to outcomes. As you mentioned, it's four lights. If I do time putting all this analysis in, that's a lot of my time. You're kicking this back a month and a half. And I mean, if you want to do that, that's fine. I can spend hours and hours pulling this information together. It just seems like a waste of staff time, frankly, to sit there and do that for 4 lights.
I think we have a lot of the numbers already, right?
It depends on what unit we go for.
So
I mean, there's multiple options.
I'm hopeful that maybe, Eric, you and I can sit down so you can give me a better understanding of what you're looking for. I know that the park and ride lights from way back to when I was acting town manager, the park and ride has been a challenge. And to be productive in making sure that I understand so I can provide Dana assistance in this topic, I think for you and I to have a discussion, or any other board members, so I can have a better understanding. And I understand useful life, time, that part of it. So I don't want to kick it down the road any further, and I would like to get this expedited. Original goal for me is to get it in before October, before the clock changes, and we're gonna be having, it's gonna be getting darker sooner. So that's kind of like what I would propose. Dana will be out of the office for a couple weeks, and the RFP closes when, Dana?
Monday.
Closes Monday. So I can take a look at it then, and maybe you and I or anybody else that would like to connect, that we could talk about it, and then when Dana comes back from vacation, we can hopefully finalize that. My concern is how far we push it out, and not be able to actually get the product and get it installed. So somebody can bring me closer up to speed on what the expectations are. I know that Dana's been putting a lot of time into it, but what I'm hearing is it's not satisfactory. So I want to find a meeting in the middle of how we can get to yes and get this moving.
But to be clear, it may be satisfactory to the rest of the board, and so.
So let's hear from folks. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Eric. Okay. Miranda.
Yeah, so it seems like there's a lot contingent on which lights we choose. But I'm also wondering, Dana, if you could clarify some of your timeline of like what you're thinking. Where like, maybe you're not coming to us with an exact number because things will happen before like the next board meeting.
I mean, that was the hope, is I am going on vacation. I was hoping that we had talked about DPW selecting something next week.
Mm-hmm.
If I just get a cut sheet on that, I can submit the permits. Or submit for the permits. As I think I mentioned in the memo, one of them, the agency has 45 days to respond. The other one, there's an unlimited amount of time, but they've told me they can get it to me back in a week. I just want to get these in, like Gail said, it's almost winter. This has been going on for 3.5 years. If we go for an alternative of grid tied, we're ripping out trees, we're trenching, and there's a lot of upfront cost. I understand, you know, maybe over X amount of years, you know, at some point, like your upfront cost versus what you're paying over time, there's a balance, right? Like you don't want to put so much upfront that it just doesn't make sense long-term. And like you said, it might not be around for 100 years. I don't know, and again, as I mentioned, I think in the memo, this is outside my bailiwick. Maybe there are some rules of thumb for how much you want to put into a park and ride up front and how much you want to invest in it. I don't know what those rules of thumb are.
Okay, let's hear from Tim.
I hope people don't hate me for this, but what's always funny to me is sort of the drivers of how we even got here in the first place. And you know, my understanding of this is that when the park and ride was created, there was legitimate concerns and you know, expressed from the public around safety, and that, you know, we have people and problems there, and that, you know, improving the lighting will perhaps address these issues. You know, I sort of reflect on two park and rides that I'm fairly familiar with, Thetford and Windsor. They're close to the interstate. They have had major upgrades. In fact, Thetford created theirs, and they have pretty significant lighting. But the other thing that I've always kind of, this is my personal pet peeve, is the ridiculous amount of light pollution. That is to say, lights that are just so bright and everywhere unnecessarily. So I kind of temper this whole thing around, like, number one, how did we get here? Okay, safety, we want it to be better lit because hopefully that'll make it safer. But then we also have this thing of like the clarification on the state, because if it's a park and ride, like, is it a town park and ride, a state park and ride? Who's responsible for it? So there's been all this sort of like thing behind all this factor of the lights. Like if we decide to put in lights, great, put in lights. But I'm just sort of, it just seems odd to me as a community that we have this park and ride, we've had some problems with it. Then we sort of suggested, well, if the police would just monitor it more, or if we put up a sign that says, hey, you can't camp here. You know, we've had all these layers. And then now we're on this lights thing. So it's kind of, to me, kind of like we've kind of gone, you know, in circles around this entire situation as a community.
It was several months of going back and forth with the state of figuring out who owns it, where the right of way is. I almost got it surveyed.
Do we not know that? Do we not know who owns it?
We did not have clear records at first. But I worked with V-Trans for probably 3 months to figure out, oh, it's the state property, but we have the right to manage it and make improvements.
Well, why would we want to do that?
Because our residents are requesting it.
But I understand, but I'm just saying, if it's a state asset and they feel it's important to the transportation system, why aren't they taking care of it?
Because it's residents that it feels important to. I mean, I'm not nobody from the state, did you hear what I'm saying, Tim? Nobody from the state came down and said, let's do this. It was the abutters.
I would be very curious to look at the Thetford and Windsor examples, like, how are those run? Who funded it? You know, they got the thing up, they have incredible lights, parking, painting. So it's an odd one to me, honestly, as both a citizen and now sitting here. So I just think that's worth knowing. But at the end of the day, I mean, if we want to put lights up, but I'm pleading also with the light photometrics to be not glaring into those are a lot of nice neighborhoods there that do not need more, you know, LED obnoxious lights spraying through their areas.
And we are applying the town's requirements for lighting to this, which is that it will not be disruptive to the neighbors.
Well, that policy, with all due respect, has failed like many times.
And on top of that, the V-Trans has also provided some guidance from a guidebook that they have, I don't know what it's referred to as. So far, each of the 3 quotes that we've received in their photometrics, they've only put 4 lights in each. You know, each quote has put 4 lights in. Sometimes they're offset so that the light is here, 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 here. Sometimes they're directly across from each other.
And we'll be able to control the brightness of the lights.
Yeah, we can control the brightness. You know, there's the possibility of going for settings where after 11 o'clock they'll dim. Yeah.
For clarity, I appreciate all your work on this, I really do. And I know it's a pain, but I also think that it's kind of one of those things where we, like, you know, try and chug it along, and then it's like, well, how did we, you know, and we never really got this the fact that we don't know whether the state or the town owns this, to me, is almost absurd.
Well, this-
Like,
I think we do know
don't
that.
know.
Yeah,
The
the
state
state
probably-
So if the
owns
state
it, and
owns
we
it-
have management rights.
Yeah.
I mean, it
State
feels,
owns-
yeah,
sorry.
yeah, it does, yeah, state owns it, we have management rights. I mean, I think what your point is well taken by me at least, in that, you know, way back when, and there may have been an alternative path to direct residents who are advocating for this to advocate to the state to make the improvements out of their budget, but they advocated to us, and we are responding in a very slow timeline.
Yeah, well, and also at one point, the project was declared dead by the board chair in a previous board. I mean, this hasn't been a continuous project. There's been a lot of back and forth here. And Eric, I apologize if I came off a little hard in my response to you, but this has been, this is a really frustrating project.
Yeah, I hear that, okay. I'm gonna go Eric, Miranda?
Very briefly, it's no problem at all. I appreciate your work as well. I should have said that to begin with. To Tim's point, maybe that's worth going back to the state and thanking them for their grant money, but also looking for additional funding from VTrans. Like, hey, we do the project, can you kick in more, right? We're getting is it $20,000 grant?
18, and just I'll let you know, I did call the state on Monday or Tuesday. I talked to Tina Bull, who's the regional director, and she said, we ain't got no more money for you. So I tried to shake that tree already, and it didn't budge.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Miranda?
I'll just say, I feel like Dana, you heard, I think, and I support Eric's comments too, of like taking in consideration when you're making the decision about like which bid to go for of like lifespan. But yeah, I'm inclined to support this, and I think, yeah, I'm ready for it to just have lights.
Okay, so I've heard a couple suggestions. One is to table the item, one is to approve the item. I haven't heard a specific, if there's like a recommended revision to the motion that anyone might want to propose. I've also heard Gail's offered to meet with board members one-on-one or in non-quorum groups to further understand board input on this matter. And perhaps that could be done in conjunction with
right, it's conceivable we could do both. We could arguably peg a number like 35,000 instead of 40 or whatever. That's palatable, and then we could sort of get the details ironed out and try and move the thing forward if that's appropriate.
Yep, that's sort of a middle ground pathway that Tim described. Dana? Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
I thought that was a hand, okay.
No, that was me going.
Okay. So there's a few options out there. Any other thoughts people want to share, or a motion someone wants to make?
Are you able to make a motion since you moved it on the agenda down to discussion?
Yes, because we clarify action may be taken next to
Perfect.
discussion items, yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
You want me to
Any
give it a
further
shot?
comments or motion, or?
There's a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the Wilder Park and Ride lighting project in a not to exceed amount of 35,000, with the other details discussed tonight to be ironed out between the select board and the new town manager, Gail. Sorry, that's a terrible motion.
Works.
You got your point, I'll second that.
Okay, second from Miranda. Any further discussion on this?
I have a question.
Yes.
Does the 35,000 feel reasonable? Like you hopefully won't have to come back?
As long as we're comfortable with doing that, and if the DPW has to pay $100 for concrete or something, we can move forward with it.
Okay.
Let's get them in.
Okay. Eric?
Thank you. Appreciate the motion. I am going to vote against it, not because I don't support this project. I do. It's a public safety concern that's been raised and brought to our attention quite some time ago, and I think it's important that we install these lights. In principle, however, I reject the notion that we should just write blank checks, essentially. We should do project planning, and we should do estimation, and then bring it before the board, and the board should then have an opportunity to see how we got to that number, how we got to that point. So it's my vote against this is just in principle. 35 might work fine, but why are we doing this? We're 2 weeks in this schedule is probably, we can probably make that up. So I don't think this makes a lot of sense procedurally.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. Point very well taken.
If
Any other
allowed in
comments?
Robert's Rules of Order, I will retract my motion.
Wow.
No, I really
Okay.
appreciate your insight and thoughts around this. I'm not in love with the procedure. I was just trying to, get to a solution. So if that's appropriate or allowed, I don't know Robert's rules very well, but,
I will make a motion.
Okay, something loud. Okay, can I just comment before we, so
Yeah.
that motion's been retracted. I'll just say, I mean, I definitely agree with Eric in principle that, best practice is to have detailed financial estimates, for items to be agenda ready to come before the board. And given that we haven't been fully consistent with that and that we are working, that is a ideal I would like us to work towards. I'm comfortable with supporting an estimated amount for this project because it has been in particular such a long running effort and one that is important and timely and but I take Eric's feedback seriously, and I know I'm thinking Gail probably does as well as a finance person. All right. Okay, so that's where we're at. No motions currently stands. We can continue discussing. We can make another motion.
I'll make another motion.
Miranda.
I move that the Hartford Select Board authorize the town manager to acquire lighting equipment for the park and ride that is not to exceed $35,000.
Motion for Miranda. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second from Mike. Any further comments or discussion? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. So Tim,
Nay.
Miranda,
Aye.
Eric,
Nay.
Mike,
Aye.
I'll vote aye. Okay, so the motion passes with 3 in favor, 2 opposed, 2 absent. Great. Thank you, Dana.
Cheers. Thank you.
I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.
All right. We can move now to our next agenda item, which is the fiscal year 28 budget calendar. Gail, would you like to brief us on this item?
Sure, I can do that. This calendar is put together based on when voting day is, and you work backwards from there. And historically, it's worked very well for the town to have this calendar in front of the board, in front of staff, to make sure everybody's on the same page. It's a lot of time together, and it's really important that as staff provides the board the information, that the board has adequate time to review it. The only change that is new from what I have done in the past is that we're gonna try giving you all of the board presentations at once at the beginning, and then you will be asked to ask questions at certain times throughout the calendar, and those presentations will also be available to the public leading up to those meetings. I think this will be more efficient. It'll allow for consistency across all of the board presentations, and I'm hopeful that it'll flow along. You'll see that there's quite a few placeholders in there. I know that it's not a favorite thing for people, but it's really important because you have weather, you have sickness. Life happens, and you need to make sure that you have a quorum, and we need to make sure that staff are able to get to provide their presentations. So I've worked with the HR director because we want to make sure about the town reports. We've taken so many different things into consideration to make sure that have everything that meets statute.
Okay, great, thank you. Comments and questions about the budget calendar as presented? Tim?
I appreciate the expertise on that. Year to year, I sort of struggle a little bit with the idea of the departments, and this is no reflection of any of them per se, but like just the consistency of the template, if you will. That is to say, like, you know, what I try and do every year is I actually, you know, we got that notebook recently, and I was gonna like take it on myself to create a spreadsheet and look at the last 3 years and trends and percentages and so on, because I just like to get that broader perspective. But then when it comes to department by department, last year felt kind of cloudy to me in terms of like, okay, what are you asking for, you know, needs and wants kind of thing, and then clarity on like reserves, and then, you know, we obviously work it a little bit on the, you know, a lot later, kind of on the revenue side, like, okay, this is what they want, how, you know, how's it gonna be paid for kind of thing. So if we could just think about that process of trying to kind of make, as we, I appreciate those department presentations, but I think that if we can make them a little more of a consistent template about like, here's what we spent last year, here are our needs, here's the impact that potentially would be for cost. Something that's a little more standardized that they could kind of all match. I think it would be clear to walk through that together with something that's a little more of a standard template.
Absolutely. I can't speak to last year because my involvement was very minimal.
Yeah.
At Stand Up this week, when I spoke with the leadership team, we talked about consistency and that I would be giving them a template that everybody will be using. Certainly, I would like for them to still have one slide in their presentation to toot their horn and to recognize the hard work that they've been doing, but the rest of it will be the meat of it and making sure that we're consistent with it.
And one more brief comment. The other thing that I think I've articulated this to Miranda a little bit, but I think we often start the budget process on the expense side. And I don't think it would be a terrible mistake to be really thinking about the revenue side on the front end too, like looking at the grand list, looking at LOT, you know, et cetera, and just kind of visiting that and saying, all right, that's kind of our capacity. Because what tends to happen that I've seen, you know, even before I was on the board, is that we say, oh, well, this is how much money we need. And then we kind of like move the shells around, not in any kind of nefarious way, but like, okay, well, unexpended fund balance was 2 million, and one year we brought over 1 million, and we kind of like try and make that work to make the rate palatable. I would like to start from the rate, which is what people see when they get their tax bill, and then maybe work our way back a little bit and say, okay, we know the grand list, we know our current rate. And so I was suggesting even, and again, I dealt with this in the school too, where it was constantly like the budget versus the tax rate, and they would like go back and forth on that in terms of the percentages. And I know it's very complicated because there's like obviously the enterprise funds and so on. But my idea would be to say like, we really don't want the municipal tax rate to move more than whatever. And I was suggesting 2.5%, but I may be over conservative. But the idea is once you know that, you say, okay, there's the grand list. We really don't want the tax rate to go up by more than 2.5% for wiggle room. Then we can kind of work our way back on revenue, and we can say, okay, we know we have LOT, we know we have this, we know we have that, and kind of get a sense of like, well, what does that give us for capacity? Does that give us another 2-3 million year to year that we can work with or whatever? Kind of, we could massage it back and forth a little bit. So that's all. It's just my thoughts.
And we certainly, I mean, as the finance director, I design different spreadsheets that I can give you what the tax rate's going to be immediately, which I certainly can still do now. If somebody else wants to take notes as we go along. My only caution is that when you start, if the board makes a decision after every presentation, you're gonna be constantly going
I'm not
back and
suggesting
forth.
that.
So
That gets stacked
what
as
we
a
could
mess.
do, when I present the draft budget, the first draft for the general fund, I can certainly put in there the spreadsheet, and this is where we're at, this is what the tax rate's gonna look like. And we won't include LOT, we won't include the unassigned fund, because that's a decision we need to wait to hear from the board of how much you want to use. I can certainly collect the information to find out what we have for the sales tax part of it, the meals and rooms, all of that information I can have readily available. And from my perspective, in my position, I would be happy to do that, and we can give it a whirl and see if maybe that's a better approach to take. Again, I would caution if you're going to try to make a decision after every presentation.
No, I'm not suggesting that. The other thing that's very uncomfortable, and I think hasn't definitely not worked, is when you ask departments to develop budgets without sort of that front end guideline. So like they develop a budget and they were like, well, wait a minute, no, we can't do that. And you start pulling the rope back. I think it's better to start from a more cautious position if that's what we have, maybe we don't. And that gives them a front end guideline that says, okay, you know, I have some sense that, like, you know,
But maybe that's the
I'll just
next,
say, yeah, Tim, we do have our next agenda item is to talk
Okay.
about the proposed budget guidance.
Okay, sorry.
So I feel like we're getting a little bit into that now, so we'll
Okay.
just stay focused on the calendar and the schedule, and then we'll be able to get into that discussion very shortly. Okay, Eric?
Thank you. Thank you for this schedule, Gail. I looked at it, and the thing that jumped out to me was the presentations being all delivered up front. That was the immediate difference that I noticed, and I think that's a great one. So I appreciate that. All the dates look good to me. I think this is fine.
Great,
Looks great to me as well.
looks good.
We gotta get a snack rotation going for all these meetings.
Brief comment on the template topic, because that's a little bit different than the guidance. It's more about how these presentations are gonna happen. I think you probably heard, but yeah, some piece about what people did in revenue and in particular, maybe even its own slide if people have it, but to report on grants people were awarded. Yeah, we would love to see that consistently over time, because that is, yeah. Oh, it's in the guidance. Okay, sorry. Okay. Point of order, I'm out of order. All right, any other comments on the schedule itself, the calendar?
Do we need to approve this?
yes, please.
So I'll make a motion to adopt the, what are we calling this? The
FY '28 budget calendar as presented.
FY '28 budget calendar as presented.
Second.
Second from Miranda. Any comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed,
Thanks, Gail.
abstain? Okay, great. So the calendar is approved.
Miranda seconded.
Miranda second, Eric motion, Miranda second. All right, our final discussion item is to talk about the guidance. So this is the FY '28 budget guidance. Miranda prepared a revised version for us to contemplate and discuss together. Miranda, do you want to start by making any comments?
Yeah, so got feedback from everybody on the board and kind of added that in, so you'll see some of the things that are have been struck out are like prioritizing infrastructure maintenance. I think we've made that clear with our facilities manager adopting that position with the last budget, that's a priority. And so I took out the prioritizing community safety response staff. I think community safety is a priority, but it was like a holdover from last year's guidance, and I was like, oh, I don't know if like this specific staff needs to be called out in the guidance. It also doesn't apply for every department, so it kind of felt odd. I also crossed out like maintaining a focus on mitigating climate change. I think we're already have that as a focus with I forget Dana's position, our climate
Sustainability coordinator.
Thank you. And then I also took out the identifying resources to advance DEI practices, only because I feel like the board, I'm inclined, I would like to leave that in there, but I feel like we don't have a clear vision of what that looks like. So just giving that to staff is kind of like, well, where do I go from here on that? So I did strike that. And then I think the things that are, so I think that's one thing, if there's any opposition to any of those. And then I think something else that I wanted to talk about was, hold on, I took notes. So whether or not we do a level budget with itemized add-in options and then having staff prioritize each option, or we do a percent increase like we've done or like that has been done in previous years. And then also I wanted to talk about the templates. But Gail, you've said you're gonna do a presentation template. So I will strike that from my list. Are you also gonna be doing the budget template, like the spreadsheet? Okay.
Well, I will be assisting the finance director to have the Excel spreadsheet. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect, then I will also strike that. Some feedback that we did get from, I sent Gail a question asking how department heads kind of felt about the level budget with the add-on options versus the percent increase. I think there was 2 responses. Both were in favor of the percent increase, and then one of them noted for larger departments, conducting a detailed project prioritization exercise each budget cycle would be extremely time-consuming and may not yield significantly better results than a straightforward percentage-based operational increase. So that is that, and I will leave it to 2.
Okay, great. Thanks for collecting and synthesizing the feedback. Very appreciated.
It gets funny that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, let's go to Eric.
Thank you. Very quick question. Did the question that went to staff, was it a level budget or a level service funded budget? Because there's a difference.
You know, I said level service budget. And hopefully they saw that.
Right.
Well, that's-
I'm 90% sure I said that.
That's where
Let
it
me
gets
go look.
weird, right? Because we know, like, I'll use the police as an example. If they year to year have not been able to hire officers or dispatch or whatever, so they're effectively short service for what they're supposed to be doing, you know, how do you define that, right? So I think year to year and department by department, it's always kind of weird, right? Every year is always a little different in that nuance of like who's been hired, what kind of work have they delivered, what are the expectations for the work they should deliver. So there is some year to year fluctuation there, and say nothing of the fact that, you know, obviously police and fire have a significant portion of our budget. So when we start throwing percentages around, that gets weird too, right? Because you have like a $6 million budget versus a $2 million budget at 2%. Those are big numbers to play around with as it relates to staffing and so on. So there's a lot of, you know, I understand the complexity of that. So it you know, simply saying, hey, everybody 2%, go figure it out, probably isn't a great model.
I did check, and they reviewed the budget guidance. So they reviewed the document, and it does say level service budget.
And it sounds like part of the feedback we got from that one individual was about the, like the ranking would be cumbersome. And that was part of that suggestion under the development approach, which is something that I talked to Miranda about a little bit as an idea that I threw out there of this, you know, sort of asking people to rank aspect or additions to the budget that would be above the level service funded budget. And the feedback was that the preference would not be to do that. Okay, Tim.
I always find it's funny with budgets too, in the sense that, you know, it's a little bit of both a mirror, I call it mirror and window exercise. That is to say, like a reflection of what, you know, what's going on internally, what have we spent, what are we doing? But then how do we get at the window? And the window being like, what does the community want? What's our sense of like how the community thinks we're doing? And, you know, what are the, you know, and I don't always want to go for the squeaky wheel, because I think sometimes we think like, oh, well, the people that have come here and vented about X, Y, and Z, that's what we should spend money on. But I'm just wondering whether there's any other tools that we could get some sense of the community at large, other than just the acceptance of the budget when we present it. I was just always intrigued by this idea of how do we get to know like what the community feels like, hey, you know what, it sounds like, you know, police could use more money for this or whatever that looks like. And I don't have any sense of how we would get that data, but maybe somebody else does.
Yeah, I mean, it does go to something that we talked about as part of our community engagement plan that we approved, was specifically one of the recommendations was for a public engagement event, a budget-focused one. And when Miranda and I first proposed it, we thought that public safety would be you know, as opposed to having it be so broad of like everyone's input on the budget, because it's a little too broad, to focus on public safety as, you know, a big budget area, something that we know community members have a lot of ideas about, just to get a broader sense of, yeah, I think of like the range of folks that I hope to represent in this role, and how there is a really broad range of how people probably feel about funding for our police force. So it's definitely something I'm interested in, and I don't know if we remember exactly where we landed in terms of the planning of that engagement. Eric's on it. Okay, Eric, did you have any?
It's on the bubble to the top of my list. It's
Okay.
literally number 1 for tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Yay.
Okay, so Eric's gonna be doing some thinking about how we can move forward to structure community engagement around at least around public safety as a budget topic.
And you're obviously, that's the mode you want to be in. It's sort of like that sense of like what people are saying, what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's important, and we appreciate that. So it's kind of like, I drive to the transfer station. I'm like, wow, seems like we should probably fix this, but that's my opinion.
Yeah,
Maybe
so
that's nobody else's.
That's number 2 on Eric's list.
So my only concern with just focusing on the public safety part of it is Public Works is huge. Their budget, the impact across as well. And they've expressed some challenges with the budget that was put together for them last year. And they're concerned with the percentage that you may or may not be giving to that across the town this year, that they're going to be starting in the hole already. And so I just want to make sure that everybody's aware. I did forward the email to the board from Public Works regarding that, regarding their budget. And so I just want to make sure that we keep that in mind as well. The other thing I want to mention about the budget guidance is that we have unions, as everybody knows, and I reached out to the clerical union, just balcony level, nothing finalized. We'd like to have them do a 1-year extension so we can get their union on the same schedule as the rest of the unions. Also, so leading to that, that'll get us through FY28, that'll get us through this. Would like to open union negotiations in May of next year so we can have them completed before we start the budget cycle. So those are some things that I've been doing behind the scenes to make sure that, which will help going forward when we're trying to do our budgets. If we have them all in the same cycle, make sure we have equity across all of them, which will definitely maybe calm some areas down. I'll leave.
Can I give you an alternative view on that? Why do we do that? Like, because when I was in the school side, 80% of the budget was staff. And if they negotiated and settled a teacher contract before you even worked on your budget, you're already kind of painted in. And, and I'm not trying to be anti-union or anything, but I just feel like, you're trying to pass a budget which is predominantly staff, and then they're getting agreements in place before you've even, looked at your budget. And I'm not saying it should line up 1-to-1, and you kind of obviously need to plan, but it just strikes me that those should be closer calendar-wise than they traditionally have been. But that's my opinion only. So.
Yeah, the way that they're set up now is that they all start on July 1st. So we want to, and certainly don't have to close them and finalize them prior to the budget starting, but the way that it works right now is that we're doing union negotiations way out of schedule of everything else, and so you are always chasing, and you're always chasing. So I'm certainly open to suggestions. That's kind of like something that I want to, hopefully we can nail down as we're working through the budget guidance, and then, just my thought.
Okay. I just want to respond to one other point that Gail made, and then I'll go to you. Just about, the DPW point. Well taken, we definitely want all of the input from the departments and from the public. I think in terms of public support and public engagement, that one feels more uniform in my experience, that everyone really feels strongly about, supporting our infrastructure.
Good.
That said, people who are always, our email boxes are always open. We're always open to people's comments around DPW operations and funding for that. I think just to distinguish it from a policing, there's a little more nuance in terms of the public voice and public opinion. So we want to highlight that in the public session.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah. All right, Miranda.
I was, I think, thinking about Jeremy's email too. I'm thinking that, I don't know, I guess see when I'm thinking about the level service funded operating budget versus the percent increase above last year's, or FY27's budget, I'm still kind of am inclined to go with the level service funded operating budget, only because I feel like every year, everything is an add-on option. Like, we go through these budgets and, I mean, last year, we were literally talking about like, we were looking at the police budget and we're like going through, you know, oh, actually, how many of these like Kevlar vests do you need? How much of this do you need? And so I do feel like everything kind of is already an add-on option over the budget, right? Like any additional items that they are requesting are called out and then kind of already add-on options. Because we do discuss them when we're like going through the.
Well, just thinking about what we mean by level service funded, I think it would be important to really define that,
Yeah,
because if people need additional equipment to provide the same level of services that they
Well, yeah.
have, or they need to replace equipment, so
Yeah.
so all their services are continuous, and then, you know, I would see that as part of the level service funded budget. It may be represent an increase, but it's so they can continue providing the same level of service that they have been providing.
And that's also how I imagined level
Yeah.
service, but that may be not the real definition of what that is.
I Googled it.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
the baseline thing.
Level service budget maintains the exact same operational capacity and programs as the previous year.
But we would want to include, obviously, like, COLAs and like union.
That's built in.
That's built in,
Okay.
yeah,
And
yeah,
inflation
yeah,
on materials and equipment and all that's
yeah,
built in.
Okay.
That's-
yeah.
That's why I think this is simpler.
Yeah.
Because then, so if you think, sorry to be out of order, but if you think about what we did last year, this is what we did. We didn't say this is what we were doing.
Yeah.
We gave them a percentage, but then what we did was all of our discussions focused on the add-ons. And all the time spent was with the model that Steve Daly, the interim finance director, created for us, or one that Tim created for us. And we just did a lot of what ifs, right? Because we said we want to maintain the status quo, and there was no appetite for cuts. And so if you want to throw a percentage on this, you have to entertain the fact that that might mean cuts. And that's why I think that the level service funded, maintaining status quo, is actually easier. And I'm not sure that, I didn't get a chance to read these emails because I was in another meeting right before this one. But I'm not sure we're all on the same page here in terms of what this means.
Yeah, I think being on the same page about what this means is essential.
Right.
And for department heads and department leadership as
Yeah.
well. But yeah, a level service funded means that what do you need in order to maintain the same level of services and staffing that you did last year?
But as you share with us though, if DPW is feeling like this particular year was too lean, that they actually couldn't deliver, then that kind of, you know, should be reflected, right? That you would say like, you know, last year we were too lean and we need a little more money for whatever, salt or paving or
Yeah,
staff.
absolutely. They're the only department that I've heard from so far that, you know, definitely expressed their concern about their ability to perform the service that they're going to be doing in this fiscal year. And then just as a reminder, when a percentage is put into place, in most cases, it means if you're saying 2.5% or you say 3% over last year, that most likely will result in staff having to go away, because unless you do 3% outside of staff and benefits. So I just want to remind everybody, for those that are new of doing the budget, if you just say overall, you can't have more than a 3% budget increase from last year, that would result in a reduction in staff and ultimately a reduction in service, so.
And healthcare is the other one that always jumps around. for us.
Absolutely.
Can I speak to, I love this, thank you for writing this up, Brandon, by the way. I just really want to comment on the staff and workforce one. I think that is really an area, honestly, that we've kind of struggled with delivering on. And I'm excited about the new HR position, and I feel like if I was going to pick an area that I would really love us to grow and strengthen, that would be that area that we really do work on staff retention and development and training and so on, and really kind of get that to be way more robust. I think it would really help both in our performance and retention and so on. So that's, and culture in general, right? So.
Well, yeah, maybe that's like a piece of, maybe that's a piece of feedback for your budget, Gail, as a town manager, in terms of thinking about training needs and how to budget for those.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Other comments? You want to summarize where we're at, or?
So I just added
Yeah.
the definition that you provided. I had a budget, I put in parentheses, a level service funded operating budget, parentheses, a budget that maintains the exact same operational capacity and programs as the previous year. And I also wonder if the 1 to 3 ranking is I would like to hear people's opinions on that too. Like, does that feel good, or is it just like is it too, like, you know, I'd really like to have, like, I strongly advocate for this, and I would also really like to have this, and like, it's just 2 options, and they kind of put those, they don't even have to rank them, but they're just like 2 slides, one with the add-ons that they really strongly advocate for, and one with add-ons that they really want. Because let's be real, nobody's gonna say,
gonna
oh, I'm
say-
asking for a nice to have.
I know, I'm wondering if it's not a necessary, the ranking isn't necessary. It's like, the request is for, what do you absolutely need to maintain the same service and staffing that you did last year? And then you can have, you know, slide or 2 or whatever about what you want, if possible.
Yeah,
And a justification for why you're advocating for that, rather than just a number of ranking, like more, I would rather see is like your reasoning behind why you're putting this in your presentation.
I also think that it, you know, traditionally, I think our departments have done a really good job of being very honest and conservative in what they feel like they need to run what they run. So it just puts them on an awkward spot to say, "Ooh, I'd kind of like to have this." You know, it just it doesn't translate well. I think the reality is, like, when they're coming to present, this is what I need to run this and run it well. You kind of have to have some level of respect and reverence for that to say, okay, this is what they're saying, and listen to the presentation, and then, you know.
The other thing I like about this approach and suggestion is that it makes it easier to communicate with residents, like why the increase is what it is. You know, once we get there, it's like, staff told us that this is what they need to not make service or staffing cuts. And so that's why whatever percent we do end up, it's like, that's the rationale. And if people want to advocate for service, you know, for less of an increase in following years, then it's really clear that that is gonna, you know, that's an acceptable thing to advocate for, but it may translate to service cuts in certain areas. So yeah, I support the direction we're moving in. Do other people have?
Do you have anything else about this?
Yeah, I like the level service, and probably not gonna get very many fans for this, but I think that level service, and as long as we have that, let's see where we're at, and if it comes, I think people are gonna be very surprised. The price of things have increased so much. It's not a bad thing if we have a year that we don't add anything new. Let's do level service. That's gonna be enough of an increase. Obviously, if there's we may need equipment to continue the same type of level of service, but let's have 1 year of not having anything new. I would certainly support that. I would much rather support that than you come and say, we're only gonna do 3%, because I can tell you that will be staff. Staff will be gone, service will be gone.
And I think the add-on, sorry. I was just gonna say that I think right, like, it is a level service budget, but then there's also all of the like add-ons that can be presented, so.
I wouldn't even give that option.
Oh, that's what you're saying.
No, I'm saying that
That end
if you
sentence.
truly want to do a level service one, I think that's what you need to do. That's gonna be enough of an increase. I think, you know, some of the emails that I forwarded to you, just in general, just fuel alone, and then you're talking about material, public works, you know, you're gonna see a substantial increase. If for some reason that it comes back and like we only end up with a 3% increase, and then the board wants to entertain any type of add-ons, I'm sure that every department can come up with a few things that they want, but why not start at the basic? That's my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think a potential reframe could be, or we did something similar to this last year, of like what's on the horizon, like what is a longer term request. Yeah, I forget exactly how we
But if you're doing the CIP, like that part of it,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think that that's
It is,
gonna
okay.
give you a better understanding
Yes.
of what you're going to need. So we're gonna,
true.
if you do level, I didn't mean to overstep,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
yeah,
But
no.
if you do the level funding and then we work and have a solid CIP in place, you're going to know that you're gonna have an influx in that as well. Because if you're truly gonna fund those, your reserves are gonna need to be changed. So that's my vision for being long-term if you, once you have that plan in place.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Okay, I think Eric had his hand up before. Did you want to comment still?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, so process-wise, we don't need to finalize this tonight, right? We're gonna aim to, maybe we could, but we still have the 18th to wrap this thing up. So just putting that out there. This is minor, well, not a minor thing, but under budget prep and presentation guidelines, number 5, and maybe this is what you were referring to, Gail, that really probably deserves to be brought up into budget development approach, the first section, if we're going to keep that. This is a contingency plan, basically, and there are, it's evident to me that this is both challenging. Well, it's challenging in multiple ways. It's challenging to create, it creates work to come up with where you might be at 2.5% or whatever percent. But it also, if it means that it translates to staff cuts, it's not great for morale, right? And so I'm torn on this, but the reason that we had something like this in there last year, and it did not get honored, I don't think. Maybe there was material that wasn't presented to us that was in the queue and ready to go. But it was in there last year because we were facing a lot of uncertainty around tariffs. This year, we're facing a lot of uncertainty around tariffs and a lot of uncertainty around global supply chains and shipping. And Lord knows what else, right? And so there's so much time between now and December for things to happen in the world the way it operates now, that I feel like we always need a way to say, you know what, this isn't gonna work. Level service funded budget isn't gonna work this year. We need some sort of alternate plan. And so it's about having something ready for us to work on. How that gets presented, I don't know. We can sort of sort that out. But that was the idea last year. That's the idea this year. And but it is fraught with some challenges.
Thoughts on that piece? Lily, Miranda?
Yeah, I was also going to call that one out, Eric. Wanting to hear if people also think that the 2.5% above FY27 for this, like, likely is what will be below the level service budget anyway, but is 2.5% enough? Is that what we want? Do we want 3 for our like reduction option? Because I don't know what the level service, like, I don't know what that percentage is gonna look like off rip, and so I'm just.
Right. Okay, so it's sort of 2 questions. And again, Derek's point, we don't have to finalize our decision tonight. I think Miranda will incorporate feedback and maybe come up with like a clean draft based on our discussion tonight that we can review and potentially approve next meeting. But yes, so the 2 questions on this topic of, well, one, I agree with Eric that I think if we are including a percentage request, that should be moved up top into the budget development approach. I lost my train of thought on what the 2
Percentage.
Yeah, the percentage, amount of percentage. Do we want to do this at all? I guess that's step 1. Given some of the concerns around, morale and like what it means and workload for staff to have to come up with a budget that's, service cut implication to keep at a certain percentage rate. And then if we do want to do it, what is that percent that we want to put in the guidance?
Are you saying that you would want them to do 2 budgets, one that's level service and one that has a reduction? So we did that a couple of years ago. The board that was sitting up there asked us, and we had to do 3 budgets. And it was very, very time consuming. And certainly we all did it, but I will reiterate again, if you do any sort of small percentage in a reduction, you will have a reduction in staff and you will have a reduction in service. Staff can do a budget for you, but that is,
Yeah, so the goal with it, as Eric was saying, would be sort of a contingency plan. Like, we want to know what the level service budget is if we're in a economic situation where, or, you know, where that feels completely unfeasible, then we have at least information in terms of what cuts could be made.
okay, I understand.
That's the idea. I'm not advocating one way or the other right now, but yeah. Tim?
I don't know, it's always try and get it back to like a tangible nature in the sense of like, you know, I've always felt that there are certain resources and staffing that we've been running too lean, and it causes stress year to year. And, you know, some of my personal ones are like downtown maintenance in the winter. And I've heard, you know, for years with DPW, you know, it's both a staffing issue and an equipment issue. Okay, fine. What does that look like? You know, if we want a level of service, because we're using this word service, you know, we don't, the baseline is ill-defined, because if we're, you know, for example, and again, I hope none of these are just thoughts, they're not like suggestions, but, you know, we presented this recent blend of health officer, parking enforcement, and animal control, and I'm of the opinion that's a bad approach. I don't think it covers the needs of the community properly. So then you get to a situation where you're like, okay, well, that means you're taking that staff and you're adding staff, arguably, because you could rationalize that the demands of this community around health stuff and how we're doing it is such that we need another head count or whatever that looks like. You know, and I could give you several other examples of that over the years we've sort of said, well, we'd really like services and things to be here, but we don't have the money, or we don't have the staff, or we can't hire the people, or whatever's going on. So I always try and balance that with the reality of the tax bill I get every year, and the rates, and what it costs, and what our town people are telling us about, my God, my taxes, it's killing me. And so, like, there's always that thing. And so I really like the idea of kind of coming through a budget presentation process and then saying, all right, and we kind of did that last year, right? We said, we kind of can't afford that, or let's put that on the LOT or whatever. So, I mean, I think we can figure it out, but I don't want to make it too complicated.
Yeah, I mean, another way of thinking about this possible request is like, say we get the service level funded budget and it's a 12% increase. And we as a select board don't feel like we're not comfortable putting that before the voters. We want staff input on knowing where should the cuts be. We don't want it all to fall to us to say, okay, we can't do 12%. So how are we gonna
How do we
whittle it
get
down?
to 6%?
So it's like, so it's allowing staff to have say, like in that scenario, like guide us in terms of where those hard decisions, where we should focus our efforts in making hard decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that staff could do that and give you suggestions, and then, but also let you know what the results are gonna be.
Yeah, and maybe, sorry, I'm just thinking out loud for a second here, but like, maybe there's another approach that's not guidance saying a percent amount, but it's saying, please point, like, it's sort of saying what I just said. Say like, if we can't do the level service funded budget, please point us to X number of areas that you would, you know, in that painful situation, to recommend that we look into reductions.
I'm also wondering if maybe it's something like, if your budget is, like, maybe the percent is not, give us a budget that has 2.5% or less increase from last year, but it's, if your budget increase with the level service funded operating budget is over 5%, make those indications for us, or something like that, where it's like, you don't have to fully make two budgets, but like, if your budget, level service budget is like, yeah, I totally get it, like the percentages just like become astronomical, then we would like to have areas that we know we can look back to and say, okay, well, with our total budget, like, because I'm sure some will come in lower and some will come in higher, and maybe it'll all come out in the wash, but if there are departments where it was like, yeah, 12%, we could go back and look at those specifically.
Yeah, and not wanting to punish departments that, just because of the nature of the services they provide, the percentage is gonna be a lot higher than other areas. That's something we have to consider too.
Yeah.
Thoughts? Eric, I don't know, I'll go back to you. I'm curious if you had thoughts about sort of this idea of, having a percent recommendation for the contingency scenario versus advising departments to sort of highlight areas where the select board could focus decisions if we are having to do less than the operational service funded budget.
I think there's a few things here. One is, if you produce a level service funded budget and the number is shocking, then you need to, then we need a strategy for coming within something that we can tolerate. The other scenario, which is separate from that, is the bottom falls out of the economy. Like the world, remember the time between when we learned about COVID and then the world shut down was a pretty short amount of time, right? Imagine a scenario like that happens sometime in late November or whatever. We need to be able to respond to that. That's what I'm saying. That's what that number 5 was about so that is level service funded off the table. Like that's not even what we're talking about anymore. What we're talking about now is how do we produce a budget that people that are in economic distress can deal with? And so that's a completely different scenario. So how that gets delivered is less important to me, but are we in a position as a board, as a town, to pivot given uncertainty and risks?
Yeah, I guess I don't see that as a completely different scenario, because we're talking about economic stress on residents either way. Whether it's like a major crisis or just general ongoing crisis of affordability that we're in, where it's like, what tools do we have to produce a budget that's not going to jeopardize people's, lives?
But there's a range of palatability on taxes. So if you think about what happened in Hartford as an example, that we used to have a tax rate before the full reassessment was like $1.02 or something of that nature. Now we're back down to like in 60-cent range or whatever we are. So it's like, to me, palatability of taxes, you're never going to achieve necessarily that objective. My interest in that would be to do something almost like they do on the school side, where you are tying that a little more into ability to pay. So arguably you could take a municipal rate and you can modify it on ability to pay regardless of how much you spend. You have to spend what you have to spend, and how it impacts people is obviously very different. Some people just write the check and whatever, and other people are like, oh my God, it's gone from 2,000 to 3,000, and that hurts them. So it's like, maybe that would be an interesting discussion to me. Like, if you spend what you spend and the rate's not going to change, what's a way to make that reduce stress amongst people's taxes?
That definitely is an interesting policy discussion that I think is a little out of the scope of what our task is tonight. But I think it is an interesting big picture policy discussion that I would love to, keep having with you, Tim, in venues that make sense. Okay, so all right, Miranda?
I think I've captured the options here.
Okay.
Tell me if I've missed something. So 5 as it is, and then, or indicate areas where reductions could be made in the budget for operating expenses to be no more than 2.5%. Wait, is that different? Yeah, indicate areas instead of actually providing options for reductions, just indicating areas.
Are you saying operating expenses, does that include staff and benefits? Or when you're saying operating, are you talking about everything except for staff and benefits?
Well, then it gets even weirder, as you know, because if we have enterprise funds and we modify the operating expense, it doesn't matter, it doesn't impact the tax rate. So we have all these different layers of decisions you make within departments, and then how it ultimately impacts the tax rate, and they're very, very different.
Yeah.
So it's kind of
I think like going back to the point that we don't have to land on this tonight, I think maybe what I'm suggesting to move towards wrapping this up is Miranda circulating some of the options, like a revised document with some of the options we discussed, and board members obviously can weigh in over email directly to Miranda, but also I think maybe we can recirculate to department heads with this clarification and around what we mean by first of all, what we mean by level service funded budget and what that request is, because I think we're relatively on the same page about that piece of it. And then also see people's input on, you know, the service slash staffing potential cut scenario.
Yeah, and getting bogged down
And-
on percentages at this stage is not gonna
Yeah.
serve the process very well.
Yeah, I mean, we need to finalize this in our next meeting, but we have 2 weeks until then, so we can keep mulling it over ourselves. And I think we should also, solicit another round of feedback from department leadership as that we can include as in our thought process between now and our next meeting on the 18th.
If I could get board input by maybe Monday, do you think staff could give us their input of the revised version by the meeting on the 18th? That would be like a week.
I think that would work. I know that they're working on the most recent email that Eric distributed as well.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, and I guess the staff input doesn't have to be like in the packet necessarily. It can just be come to us as board members that we can discuss publicly in the meeting on the 18th. Okay, that process makes sense to me. So Miranda, will you recirculate this tonight or tomorrow?
Yes.
So we can get back to you by Monday? Okay. Is that working for other people as a process?
Yeah, I think it's good
moving
discussion.
forward? Okay, yeah, great, really good start to the discussion, really
you for your
good
work on
input, thoughts from everyone. I'm glad we planned it this way, so we don't have to hammer it all out in one meeting. That's always very helpful when we give ourselves a little bit of time to think through difficult topics and then have have a few days to let it sink in.
Are we committed to pickleball staying in the general fund this year? That's all I really want to know.
Maxfield is getting resurfaced, that's starting very soon.
It's just where the funds are from, that, if you recall.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I remember that's something that does fall on us in terms of the lot items and the transfer from unassigned fund is another part of our decision process later on. All right, any final comments on that or the process that we just laid out moving forward? All right, then we don't have any decisions we need to make on that. So we can move on to commission reports.
Nothing to report.
Nothing from Tim?
Thank you.
Anything from you?
Nothing tonight.
Okay, and Mike? Energy Commission did meet, I was not able to attend and I haven't, I have nothing to report either. So no commission reports. I will take a motion for the consent agenda. Eric?
Thank you, Chair. Move to approve payroll ending 8/1/2026, approve AP manifest for 7/31/2026 and 8/6/2026, and approve meeting minutes of 7/21/2026, and approve future meetings of 8/12/2026, 8/18/2026, and 9/1/2026.
A second.
Motion from Eric, second from Tim. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain. 5 in favor, 2 absent.
Can I make a brief comment on that? So I read the payroll manifest in detail, as you know, and I'm always torn in the sense that if I have just questions about the payroll manifest, is it appropriate to direct them to Gail, CC, and you guys, as opposed to, clogging up the meeting with those? Because they're pretty,
so.
there's nothing, it's more just factual questions, not.
Yeah, no, in general, any questions
Are you-
about the whole
is that
packet can
word?
go, can be sent directed to Gail
Okay.
and CC us, and then if there's a response, Gail can forward it to the rest of the select board.
Does that
and if it-
work as a model? It's not a lot, but there's usually like 5 or 6 things I'm just like, oh, what's this, or question about it.
No, definitely,
Okay,
definitely feel free to bring those up,
okay, Thank you.
over email, and then, if Gail wants to comment on any town manager report, then she can do that.
or tell me to go away.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so we have an executive session, which I forgot that we had, but we do. Okay, so let's
Make a motion to
let's
go
make a
into
motion
it.
to go into it.
I have that motion prepared.
Great, thank you.
In order to allow for I move that in order to allow for rewind.
Okay.
In order to allow for a discussion of personnel matters, I move to find that premature general public knowledge would clearly place this body and/or persons involved at a substantial disadvantage pursuant to 1 VSA Section 313A1, and move to discuss personnel matters pursuant to 1 VSA Section 313A1D.
I'll second that.
Motion from Eric, second from Tim. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, abstain? Okay, you're now.
Ashley, as clerk, makes the motion to come out, but she's not here, so we're gonna Aaron.
Thank you, Chair. I move to exit executive session at 8:27 PM with no action taken.
I'll second
Thank
that.
you. Motion from Eric, second from Tim. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstain? 5 in favor. And now we can go to a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Miranda to adjourn,
I'll second.
second from Tim.